attorneys do. Good afternoon. Are we ready? Good afternoon. My name is Howard Gwynn. I'm the Commonwealth Attorney for the City of Newport News. And what we're here today for is to make an announcement in a very important case here in Newport News. The first thing I want to do is let folk know that ethically I can't talk about the facts of this particular case, and I will tell you why in just a second. There's a rule of professional responsibility for lawyers in Virginia. It's Rule 3.6. It's titled Trial Publicity. And it says, quote, a lawyer participating in or associated with the investigation or the prosecution or the defense of a criminal matter that may be tried by a jury shall not make or participate in making an extrajudicial statement that a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication that the lawyer knows or should know will have a substantial likelihood of interfering with the fairness of the trial by a jury. A lawyer should exercise reasonable care to prevent employees and associates from making an extrajudicial statement that the lawyer would be prohibited from making under the rule. So again, I'm not going to answer any questions about the case because of that rule, because I don't want to run afoul of it. But the purpose of this meeting today is to announce that, as you know, back on April 30th of 2017, Keir Johnson and 8-month-old daughter Chloe disappeared, and they have not been seen since that time. We have been working very diligently on that case since that time, and I'm happy to announce that last Friday around noon, Carlos Johnson, who is Chloe's father, was arrested in a traffic stop on the interstate in the city of Newport News. This case has required an incredible amount of work. If you look to my left, you see a cart full of binders. Each one of those binders represents evidence in this particular case. There are 21 of them. There are also a bunch of thumb drives that represent all the hard work that members of the Newport News Police Department, the State Police, the FBI, and the Attorney General's Office have put into this case. And so for the last 7 years, I want everybody to know we haven't been sitting on our hands, but the focus of everything that we've done has been to bring the person responsible for the murder of these two beautiful people to justice. The next thing I want to do is introduce the persons that are standing behind me. To my left is Jacqueline Edwards, who's one of the lawyers of my staff who's on the team in this case. Behind her is Molly Newton from the Attorney General's Office, who's also on our team. Valerie Muth is one of my deputies who's been working with me for 26 years. She's in charge of this team. Now, one particular thing about Valerie that you should note is that we've only had one no-body case in the history of the city of Newport News. And Valerie, a year and a half ago, successfully prosecuted that case. It was Adrian Lewis. And Adrian Lewis, given Valerie's efforts and the efforts of her team, received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Standing immediately behind me is the Attorney General, Jason Miyares, and next to him is Steve Drew. So at this time, I'm going to give the Attorney General an opportunity to make remarks.
Thank you, and I want to thank Commonwealth's Attorney Howard Gwynn for his incredible work and partnership in this matter. When I took office as Attorney General, I recognized the pressing need to address and invest in unresolved cases throughout the Commonwealth. Because oftentimes when you talk to victims and their families, their biggest fear is that their loved one will just become a statistic, just another number, and that they will be forgotten. This led, obviously, to a reorganization of my office early on in my administration, of the creation of the Special Investigation, Cold Cases, and Actual Innocence section, at the time led by Theo Stamos. The purpose was to provide resources and bodies to support local law enforcement and our local Commonwealth's attorneys, also to provide intelligence and collaborative efforts. In other words, to provide additional resources and help on some of these cold cases. The mission was simple, a relentless pursuit of justice. I want to personally thank those from the Office of the Attorney General that have been involved in this case. Our former Assistant AGs, Jeff Howell and Phil Figura, Andrew Parker, obviously Molly Newton, and Jeremy Key in the Attorney General's office, and obviously Theo Stamos and Brandon Wroblewski as well. They've been incredible partners on this case as well. The reality is this breakthrough occurred because of a collaboration with our Newport News Police Department, with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, and with the great men and women that work in the Attorney General's office. With this simple idea that I know that Howard Gwynn shares with our Police Chief Drew and so many behind me, which is this: every victim deserves to have their story heard. My hope is obviously this case and others will bring closure and comfort to victims' family. Together, we will stand with our law enforcement partners. We'll continue to work with our partners throughout the Commonwealth to bring closure to families, because your safety is our mission. We want to make sure our victims' stories are heard. And again, I want to thank and applaud our Commonwealth's Attorney Howard Gwynn for his leadership in making sure that these victims were not just another number. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our great police chief, Chief Drew.
Well, I'm just going to have a few remarks. I appreciate you joining us today on this holiday. My first thought goes to Keir and Chloe's family, a beautiful little girl and her family. We were able to talk to their family over the weekend and Friday. We had our police academy graduation Friday, and at the same time that was going on, like Mr. Gwynn stated, about 12:30, our suspect was taken into custody. It was very strategic in how that played out. Again, we can't go into those cases, but he was taken into custody without incident. Later that evening, we were able to make contact with the family and share that news with them. And I, too, would like to thank the Commonwealth Attorney General for their partnerships and relationship. I think that has made all the difference. I'd also like to thank Amber Rogers and Aaron Thornton, and the whole detective division. Is both individuals know that these cases take a long time to put together, and we only get one shot at this. So I understand some, at times, frustration and length, but it has been ongoing. And I appreciate those late nights and conversations, anniversaries, and talking with family. It matters. How we treat victims' family, it matters. And I'm just appreciative of the work that this department has done. Many of the officers that are here today, that this is the very first family. This is the very first family when I got to Newport News in 2018, and Mr. Gwynn sat me down and said, this is a family you need to meet. It was the very first meeting that I had, and we promised him that we would stay focused on this case, that they won't be forgotten. I know that we can't bring anyone back, but hopefully this will provide some closure. So again, I just want to say thank you, sir, for the partnership, the relationship that we have, a phone call away, and now we'll let this play out in a court of law. Thank you.
One of the things I want to add to what Chief Drew said is when he took office in the summer of 2018, there was a function here at the police department, a meet and greet. And I got a chance to meet Steve. And Steve and I, as we were walking out of the building, I told him the most important case in the city of Newport News was the disappearance and murder of Keir and Chloe Johnson. And the most dangerous person in Newport News was a person who committed those offenses. Also want to say that, and I can't say too much about the Attorney General and his efforts, because as you can see from this vast volume of information, it took a lot of time and effort to go through that information. And really the turning point in this case is when I talked to Theo Stamos, as Mr. Miyares has mentioned, and she was enthusiastic about helping us. And then she talked to our Attorney General, and he was enthusiastic about helping us as well. And the turning point was when he assigned 3 prosecutors to help us. And there have been 6 total prosecutors working on this case throughout. And again, we have not been sitting on our hands. I want to say also that, quiet as it's kept, and a lot of people don't know, is that the state police provided a tremendous amount of resources to us as well. And this was the FBI. As recently as 2 months ago, people from the behavior unit from the FBI were here assisting us in the interview of witnesses, which turned out to be incredibly critical. The last thing I want to say before I take some general questions is that even though someone has been arrested, the job is only beginning. Even though somebody has been arrested, we know that in the last 7 years, there are people in this community who have information about this case. people who have information about this case that can help bring closure to a family that has suffered for 7 years, almost 8. And so I want to say to those people who have information about this case, that first of all, I want you to take a look at this picture. And I want you to look at these two people. And if you have information about this case that will help us successfully prosecute it, please come forward. And if this is not enough to motivate you, because it's been enough to motivate us every day, I've looked at this picture every day as motivation for today's date. If this is not enough to motivate you and you have information about this case, please know that there is still a $35,000 reward outstanding for information that will help us successfully prosecute this case. So again, I want to thank everybody for coming. This has been a great day for the City of Newport News, but again, the work is only beginning. It is not over. We will put maximum effort, as we have every day in this case, not only into the investigation of the case, but in the successful prosecution of the case. And if you have any general questions, I'm happy to take those.
Can you say what Mr. Johnson's charged with?
2 counts of first-degree murder.
I just want to make sure I'm following things correctly. No bodies for Keir or Chloe.
That is correct. That is correct.
Were you actively searching for Mr. Johnson?
Were we searching for him? No, we've known where he was. We didn't have to search for him.
Can you elaborate on that?
No, I cannot.
Are you able to say at what point did he go from being maybe a person of interest to a suspect in this case?
Well, he's been a person of interest for some time. Any other questions?
2 cases of first-degree murder.
That is correct.
Do you anticipate any other charges?
It depends on where the facts go. There may be others, but those are the main ones. And those are the ones we focused on.
And I know you said there's still the $35,000 reward.
That is correct.
You all are not giving up hope and maybe finding out where the bodies are, things of that nature, correct?
We are still searching. And again, I think as the facts unfold, that people will be amazed at the time and effort that was put into the case, the places that were searched, the places that were gone, the resources that were used to conduct those searches. Because one of the things that we know is as long as those persons are unfound, there's absolutely zero chance of closure for this family. And what we've tried to do is, as Jason said, we certainly try to bring justice to them. That's important. But oftentimes, closure is just as important. And when there are no bodies, there can be no closure. And so we made up maximum effort, and we will continue to make maximum effort every day of our lives that we are involved in this case.
Can you say where and when or more about that traffic stop that led to that arrest?
Steve, want to come in?
Yeah, don't go anywhere, it'll just be a second. So I would just tell you that the traffic stop happened around 12 o'clock Friday. We were both at the graduation. It was a little tense as we were trying to do 2 things at one time. But I can tell you Chief Crozo and his team put a plan together with the detectives involved. The traffic stop was made on the interstate around the J. Clyde Morris off-ramp, and he was taken into custody without incident.
Has he been cooperative throughout this, from Friday on or at this point?
When you say cooperative, what do you mean by cooperative?
Obviously it took a while for you to find somebody, but since his arrest, has he been cooperative?
Well, he's been arrested. I don't know if you say he was cooperative or uncooperative. I'm not sure.
Is the spelling for his name CARLOSJOHNSON?
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Are we able to know his age by chance?
Do we know what his age of child?
46.
I have to release with some more details on booking photo.
Gotcha, thank you so much. And what makes this just a case that just fuels the fight for justice and closure for this family, for all of you? Like you said, this is evidence that this is something that you all are
Right,
passionate about,
right.
getting answers for this family.
Well, I would tell you, all you have to do is look at this picture. And if you're not fueled by this picture to make sure that there's justice for these folks, then you're in the wrong profession. If you can't feel passion and commitment when you see this photograph, when you see this beautiful little child, you see her mother, if you can't be fueled by that, you're in the wrong business. All right, thank you very much.
I had no, I was surprised when I saw those. Could we get a shot of the whole team? Sure.